Viewers and subscribers, welcome back to Wizards of Sports TV.
Beautiful, beautiful.
For those of you who don't know, I'm your host, Sports with Greg, and I know it's been a long time, but what better time to make a return than the eve of the start of the 25-26 Premier League season? A season that promises to be one of the most exciting in probably the last 2 decades. Well, at least based on what we have seen in the transfer window and pre-season so far, yes, we're eagerly anticipating the start of this season. You know, some big games to kick off the season. A lot of teams have their toughest opponents in the first 5 games of the season, like Man United, Arsenal kicking off Super Sunday, first Sunday of the season. What better way to get started than one of the most exciting rivalries, at least in the, well, not the past decade, but the previous 2 decades, So, yeah, like I said, a lot to feel excited about as a avid fan of the Premier League, not just for my team, but, to see what the other teams that are going to be challenging have to bring to the league this season. And trust me, there are going to be a lot of challenges this season. Just thinking about my top 6 was very difficult just to come up with, a top 6. And I'm not even going to have them in any particular order. Fans, I expect, you to chip in with your top 6. You can put them in a particular order if you wish, or if you just want to say, this is what you think the top 6 is going to be, that works as well. By the way, before I go any further, if you're new here, please subscribe to the channel. And for my long-time subscribers, continue to like and share the videos. Now, like I said, my top 6 prediction for our teams in the top 6 for this coming season. I have Arsenal. Of course, I got to put my team first. I have Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, City, Man U, and Tottenham. No, thank God Tottenham lost the Super Cup yesterday. I don't know how I would have survived that if they had won the Super Cup. But outside of that, what I've seen from them thus far in pre-season with the hiring of Thomas Frank, they look very solid and a serious team, serious contender this season. They look like it. I mean, we know it's Spurs and they're going to Spurs at the end of the day, but trust me, they are a team to look out for. They're a team that the other challengers got to pay serious attention to this season. Likewise, Man United. They have a completely new front three, and say what you want about them, but Mbuemo and Cunha, they are already Premier League proven. Players that can get you 15 goals each. And Sesko, we don't know what he's gonna bring to the league yet, but he hasn't been a prolific goal scorer. He hasn't been a great goal scorer in the German league. But one thing I can say, he's a scorer of great goals. So let's see if his numbers improve and how far he can take that Man United attack. Arsenal as well has finally gotten a striker after what? Probably about 4.5, 5 years after Aubameyang and Lacazette left the club. This is the first prolific striker. Eddie Nketiah was there for a while, but he didn't prove prolific. So finally a prolific striker. Is Mikel Arteta gonna integrate him into the team enough? Does he have plans to use him as his number 1 striking target? Or is that gonna be Kai Havertz? We don't know as yet, That's Mikel Arteta. You're not sure. It's like a box of chocolates. You're not sure what you're gonna get when it comes to him and his squads, his lineups. Chelsea also got into 2 new strikers, Delap and Joe Pedro. Joe Pedro seems way more prolific than Nicholas Jackson was. He's a better ball player as a matter of fact, but there was a part of Jackson's game that, you have to appreciate. He wasn't the best goal scorer, but he brought a lot to that team. But, with the inclusion of Joe Pedro, like I said, and even Delap, they're going to be finishing more chances, and they look very deadly attacking so far. Defensively, they're not as solid, but going forward, they look very threatening. Just like Liverpool, with the addition of Ekitike in that squad and possibly Alexander Isak. We're not sure as yet if that deal is gonna go through. Newcastle are trying to hold out. The player doesn't want Newcastle anymore. He wants Liverpool. So let's see what happens there. But if they can have a Isak, Ekitike, and Salah front three, that's that's scary, man. That's very deadly front three, and they have a good midfield already. Luckily, their defense isn't the best right now, so if you can outscore them, you'll be able to win. Man City, we already knew, they made a bunch of transfer ins before the Club World Cup, so they haven't done much business since. But their team has gotten solid. They might be without Rodri for a few months again, so let's see how that affects their team. Even though the midfielders that they brought in, like Tijani Reinders, players like that, are very capable of filling in. They also lost De Bruyne though, so I don't know how much that's gonna affect their team, but they're still a force to be reckoned with in the league. That's it for the top six clubs that I are the clubs that I think are gonna finish in the top six. You know, as for relegation battle, I expect Brentford to struggle somewhat. Unfortunately, they lost quite a few players. They lost their coach, like key players. They lost key players and they lost their coach. You know, so I don't know who the coach coming in, what kind of system he's gonna implement, if they're gonna be playing the same kind of football, and they might still lose Wissa to Newcastle. If Newcastle have their way with that transfer. So, Brentford, I expect them to struggle. They might get relegated. Burnley as the team coming up that might get relegated again. Actually, they're the only team of the three that got promoted. They're the only one that I expect to get relegated back to the championship. I expect Sunderland and Leeds, especially Sunderland, to give a fight of it. Leeds are gonna be very exciting. They have some pretty good attacking players, but Sunderland is gonna be more a solid team. They are the team that got promoted that I see are gonna be able to get the draw. The odd draw here and there, or upset one of the big teams. So, like I was saying, Brentford, Burnley, and was Wolves. Wolves is the next team that I've picked to get relegated. They have lost some good players as well, and I haven't seen much incomings for them that I'm really impressed with. But let's see, because Wolves normally do good recruitment. So let's see how it pans out for them. But I expect them to be struggling and battling relegation. As far as the mid-table teams that are gonna be fighting for, like, Europa League or Conference League spots, uh, Brighton, Fulham, Palace, and Nottingham Forest. Because good job by Forest holding on to Morgan Gibbs White. If they had lost him to Tottenham, that would have been a major blow for them. But they were able to hold on to him and keep pretty much their same team with a few more good additions, like Igor Jesus, the young Brazilian striker. Saw a few games with him in the Brazilian league, and he's one to be reckoned with. They already have Chris Wood and Awoyini. I don't remember how his name is pronounced. The Nigerian striker. Yeah, they still have them along with Callum Hudson-Odoi, Morgan Gibbs White, like I said. So Forest still have a pretty decent team. So I expect those teams to be the ones challenging for the mid-table positions, Europa League, Conference League, and even give the big teams a fight. Villa as well. How could I forget Villa? As a matter of fact, I expect Villa to challenge the top six. Not so sure about Newcastle because they haven't lost the piece yet, but they might lose Isak. They got in Elanga, which is a good acquisition. But if they lose Isak and they don't replace him with a prolific striker, they could have a rough season. Anyways, that's it for my predictions for now. I hope to catch you guys over the weekend. Like I said, leave your comments in the comment section. Let me know what you think about my top six prediction, relegation prediction. Who do you think is gonna win the league? who do you think is going to be the leading goal scorer? You know, if Isak goes to Liverpool, I'm say Isak. If Arsenal starts, if Gyökeres becomes a starter and he gets a good start, I would say Gyökeres. You know, Ekitike as well. Salah, I do not expect Salah to be in the running this season for the Golden Boot, especially if he has those other two strikers alongside him. Over at Chelsea, Joe Pedro and Cole Palmer, you know, they're gonna be forced to be reckoned with as well. And of course, the two big guns at City, Erling Haaland and Marmoush. Those are the guys that I expect to be challenging for the Golden Boot this season. Let me know your thoughts. Leave your comments in the comment section. Like I said, continue to like and share the videos. Until next time, stay safe, be blessed, peace.